Today we welcome you to this week's seminar. So we have with us Ms. Kiran Edhi, Vice President Human Resources, Virtusa Corporation. She is Vice President Global Head HR Operations at Virtusa India, a well-known information technology services provider with a headcount of over 25,000 people across globe. She is also a key member of NASSCOM's HR Council, which has been initiated to collaborate and co-create solutions to address the industry's collective concerns around hiring, motivation, attrition, salary inflation, and leadership quotient. Kiran has over 19 years of experience as a HR generalist, largely in the areas of IT, ITES, transportation and logistics, and hospitality. Her experience spans key HR functions like talent management, engagement, development, performance management, succession planning, and career transitions. Ms. Kiran has been associated with Virtusa since 2014, propelling its growth through people-based activity from both an operational and strategic perspective. Previously, she has worked for organizations like Convergys, Bharti Airtel, Hutchison's, Three Global Services, and Accenture with a stint in the hospitality industry with Lee Royal Meridian. Her other achievements include Certified Harrison Assessment Coach, Certified Six Thinking Hats Trainer, certified by Human Synergies UK for conducting and coaching on lifestyle inventory and group style inventory, certified by Cartel Advanced Management Institute US, Middle Earth Consulting for designing and running of assessment center and development center. She has done her MBA from IIPM Delhi. She has been quoted in the media extensively on topics such as technology trends in HR operations, getting millennial ready, employee engagement, and other HR trends. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. And let me just add a little more flavor to my introduction, which is my, current thing, and it is related to the topic that we are talking today. First and the foremost thing, was born and brought up in Delhi, and then moved to Bombay for my work. Like you heard, right? I've been done my MBA from IIPM Delhi. So then for 12 years I was in Bombay, and then for last 9 years I've been in Hyderabad, right? And I'm married to a person called Indrajit Singh Aidi. He also works for Virtusa. He was also with Accenture, and we kind of have work home at place. So we have worked together for almost 7 years now in the same organizations, and I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I have a 12-year-old son. Daughter's name is Ikjot, and my son's name is Samarjit. So both of them really keep me really, really tied up. Now I'm a leader, and COVID-19 happened, but it was not that I started my journey of leadership during the crisis, right? I was already thinking ahead of time. I was already thinking something beyond that I need to do. How do I keep myself relevant? So a leader at any given point of time, whether with crisis or without crisis, is always seen as a learner. If you are not in that learner phase or that learner area every 2-3 years of your career, you will see yourself becoming redundant very, very soon. One thing that you can see from a leadership standpoint is that keeping yourself relevant at all given points of time, and not only wait for crisis. So now I have seen a lot of people during COVID-19 have picked up courses, are doing something or the other. Fine, you have a lot of time on your hand right now, but you could have created that time for yourself. So another key word that I'm using here is create time, right? And I will keep on specifying the words that I'm saying so that anybody who wants to make notes of the key words can always do that. So another key word and another key trait of a leader is to be an ability to create time. We all have 24 hours. Nobody has anything beyond 24 hours. But how do you create time for yourself, right? Create time for doing what you want to do. Create time for your learning. Because unless you don't create time, you will be in that rigmarole all the time. So there is no stopping of that rigmarole, right? Today we are in COVID-19 situation. I'm sitting at home. Trust me, my day is very busy, right? Without a cook, without a maid. Now, thankfully, from 18th May, I have the cook and the maid. But before 18th May, for 2 months, literally full 60 days, there was no help, right? And I I realized that I was not able to create time for myself in those 2 months because there were so many more things to do. And then I got onto something and I said, yeah, I can't waste my life cleaning and cooking, right? So, but that is necessary. So I cleaned, I cooked 60 days on the go. But then I also cut down on my Netflix because the moment lockdown started, binge watching started at home, right? And we were not able to create time. And it was all three hours, four hours in the night. We are watching till 2 o'clock. We don't have to send children to school, so there's nobody to wake you up at 5:30, right? Even if you wake up at 7, we are good. And even if you sleep at 12, you wake up at 7 hours of sleep. So absolutely no issues. But yes, I had to then cut down on my binge watching and get on to something which I really like to do. So that is where I say, always learn and create time for yourself. Everybody has 24 hours. You have to make that effort to do that. Else has helped, as a leader in crisis. Another thing that I feel as a leader, right? We have to learn to face our fears. This is another critical thing for us, right? You have to stand by and look at the situation and say, okay, what will happen? What's worse that's going to happen in this situation? So what's the fear I have? Okay, fear is that I might lose my job. Oh, okay. Now if I lose my job, then what, right? Once you start facing your fears, that is when you start building on options. Until and unless you don't face your fear, you are not coming to a solution mode. You're not coming to an optioning mode. You're not making your brain think further. What is happening? Then you are only running away. You are just running away from the fear, or you get into that victim mode. So I'll just quickly, repeat what I started to talk about so that, there's a small recap. So we did talk about creating time for yourself, right? We did talk about some bit of optimism and facing fear. We did talk about moral compass and spirituality and religion in terms of mindfulness. We did talk about social support and how do you want to use your social support and make best use of it. And we, in the end, did talk about physical fitness, brain fitness, and your own emotional flexibility and neuroplasticity of the brain.
One Singh from marketing stream, second year MBA student. Thank you for all those insights. My question is, as you yourself said that you're from a manpower intensive industry. So, and we all know that these are difficult times. So I would like to know what steps industry leaders in your area have taken to ensure that the staff stays motivated and confident.
See, so there's a lot of things that we have done, and every industry, every company is doing. And see, for us, if we were to talk specifically, if I were to talk about Virtusa, right, we have been ahead of the curve. So even before COVID-19 started, we already started, daily, twice a day agronomic sessions with our people. Because we are a manpower intensive industry, and we were seeing that the engagement, how do we engage our employees in online fitness, online wellness programs, etc. We already started that, and now it has suddenly caught up, right? The whole industry is doing webinars on wellness and well-being and stretches and this and that. So we already started. So having said that, Mohan, in my mind, right, and I'll be very, I would not want to talk like other leaders. Trust me, from a manpower standpoint and how do we want to keep our people motivated doesn't change. If you have been doing the right thing in the earlier days only, right, and if you have been doing the right thing as an HR person from the beginning and you are engaging your people, our mode of engagement might change, right? Our values of engagement won't change. So there is no drastic change in the reasons of why do you want to engage and motivate your people, right? But what changes definitely is some bit of programs and tweaking. So for example, now work from home has started. So we started talking to people on work from home. How do you make it more effective, work from home? What are the do's and don'ts from work from home? To keep them motivated, we have a lot more connects. So earlier, if I used to send one email to them, or we used to have one, team meeting in a week, Now probably they are seeing slightly more, 2-3 more. So frequency of the connect has increased because I don't see you face to face. Earlier, I used to see you face to face in office, used to pat on your back and say, hey, how are you doing? Great, great, ma'am, I'm good. Oh, fine. That's it. I used to see you in the elevator. I used to see you in the cafeteria, right? Now I no longer see you. So hence my conversations with you have definitely increased. Another thing that we have done to motivate our people and to keep them upfront, is that we are not stressing them out with productivity targets. We are not stressing them out with the fact that, when you are taking a call from work from home, everybody has to be silent, right? Even if you are hearing my husband or my mom talking right now, so fine, they're talking, right? It's a home. I'm not living in a hotel. I'm not in an office environment. Tomorrow, now, if my son comes running down here and says, Mama, I want this, acceptable. So these are the things which you keep your people more grounded and more humane. That is what is important, right? What is there to motivate in a human being is to be human towards that human being. Just to show that care and compassion to that human being and say, yes, I do understand what you are going through, and I'm there for you. And I'm not going to kill you if your son walks in now on the back of you, right? So that's the way we do. So it's a very practical thing, and I will not go behind saying, we are doing thousands of programs and we've come up with different modules and all. Let's be on the ground.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome, Mohammed.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Devapriya.
I really appreciate how you took us through your personal career journey, and it was wonderful hearing you for the past 1 hour. And my question is related to succession planning. So my question is how succession planning strategies can be devised in the remote working scenario.
So succession planning, if we were to see, right, doesn't mean that the person has to be physically present to be your successor. Correct? Succession planning is essentially that you want to see who are the people who are standing behind you in the crisis. So let's say, for example, I have 5 direct reports, right? But which is the direct report who is emotionally more stable? Which is the direct report who is taking the things in his stride? Which is the direct report who is working with grounded optimism, who has learned to face his fear, who is more resilient, who is showing emotional flexibility, who is bouncing back from this crisis much faster as compared to others? Performance is definitely one thing, right? But now it is a time that I see the true ability of a leader, which no Harrison and Hogan or any other, psychometric tool can find out. It can find out to a certain extent, yes, but it doesn't give you the experience of the reality of the person. So succession planning, if you were to ask me, in these times or any other time, it depends on how much interest a leader is taking into his people, his or her people. It's really not about getting a potential measure and a performance measure, which is there, right? You can still go ahead and do it, not a problem. But at the end of the day, it's the gut and the experience that tells you. Does that answer your question, Devapriya?
Yes.
It's a very impressive and engaging talk, especially when, when you are sharing your own experiences, the kind of conviction and passion that reflects in our gestures is very evident in your talk today, Ms. Heidi. And I think, you have summed up very interestingly with small anecdotes and stories and your experiences, fitness of mind, body and soul. I mean, that's what I am, summarizing it. And very, very, nicely put. One striking aspect which, in fact, your talk has reinforced this. For the last 15 talks, we have been talking to different senior executives from corporate. And one common thing comes up is the element of compassion. And you said you have your own way of expressing that. Now, that's very impressive. I'm sure my boys and girls are also taking a right message. And messages like these from somebody who is already doing it on the ground, who is practicing it, are more profound. Instead of reading a book, talking to people like you actually give you more conviction on what is being taught or what is being said and what is reflected in what they are doing. I think that connect is well established in your talk today. Nice talking to you. I mean, nice listening to you.